Step one, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step two, get some good, some food in you. Step three, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step four, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Good morning, and welcome to Good Morning Crypto, where we turn your early hours in the morning into your edge and financial freedom. Today, got a few headlines on yesterday's data. That is kind of still the big news for the week. I and some other people at Piper Academy did not think the news was quite as positive as the market did. And bank profits kind of held things up a little more than I thought they would. So we'll dive on into that after we get through the start of the show. So let's dive on into that stock heat map. Let me get that pulled up. Oh, on the wrong screen. Let me switch that over. There we go. There we go. Got the stock heat map pulled up for you. All right, we've got Apple sitting up at 1.97%, and in the pre-market sitting up at 0.61% right now. We do have Nvidia sitting up 3.4 from yesterday, up 1.52 in the pre-market. We've got Berkshire Hathaway sitting up at 1.88%, and in the pre-market sitting up 0.04% right now. We've got Nvidia also sitting up quite nicely, up at 2.57%, and in the pre-market sitting up 0.38%. We've got Eli Lilly sitting pretty neutral, up 0.25%, and in the pre-market sitting up 0.37. We've got ExxonMobil sitting up 1.63%. in the pre-market, taking a little bit of some losses, down 0.56%. We've got Tesla sitting up extremely nicely, up 8.04%. In the pre-market, sitting down just a little bit, down 0.48%. We've got Microsoft is sitting up 2.56 from yesterday's close. In the pre-market, continuing on some of those gains, up 0.66%. We've got Google sitting up at 3.1, and in the pre-market, taking back some of those gains, down 0.59%. We've got Meta up at 3.85 in the pre-market, also taking some losses, just like Google was, down 1.2. We've got Bitcoin sitting down at 1.47 for this morning. Ethereum also taking some hard losses, down 3.02. Got XRP up 0.97, maintaining that spot above Tether in market cap. We've got Solana sitting up a 4.08. BNB is sitting down just a little bit, down 0.11. We've got Cardano sitting down at 1.36. Dogecoin is sitting down at 2.34. We've got Tron looking quite neutral this morning, up 0.25%. Avalanche is sitting up, down 1.01. We've got Stellar Lumens in the green, just like XRP, sitting up 0.53%. Chainlink also in the green as well, up 1.04. And to wrap that on out for the top 10, we've got SWE sitting down 3.12. For the economic calendar today, we do have some light data coming out this morning. That will be that initial jobless claims, looking to be a little bit of a tick up from prior, from 201,000 to 210,000. We also have import and export data coming out as well. Looking to be no change on that import, but a tick up on the export. We'll kind of have to keep our eye on that, especially with some of that Chinese surplus that we talked about at the beginning of the week. We also have Philadelphia's Fed Manufacturing Index looking to be a little bit of a tick in the positive direction from negative 16.4 to negative 5. And a lot of that is going to be some back orders on things. So I don't know how well that will actually move the market. We also have retail sales month over month being the biggie for today. Looking to be a little bit of a slowdown on that from zero point 0.7 to 0.6. So a big batch of data for the morning. Other than that, most of that is going to be some light data for the rest of the day. We do have the housing market index being a light mover at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We do have the U.S. Fed balance sheet as well coming out at market close. I know a lot of people don't pay attention to that, but I like to take a little look and see how well the Fed manages their balance sheet in comparison to the rest of the world. Let's hop over to that fear and greed index for the morning. We are looking a little bit in the greed side of things on crypto. The stock market is up 1 point and sitting in fear still. We do have crypto back in almost to that extreme greed point. We're just 1 point away from it. 75 and greed up 5 points. We do have the liquidation heat map with some liquidity sitting right to the bottom side of us that we've been bouncing on a few times. So people are trying to hit some longs as at that second bounce point that we got. Could be a brief sweep of some bottom side liquidity this morning to grab that on out. There is about 50 million sitting right below us, starting at 97,967 and going all the way up to 98,500. If you zoom that on out to that 3-day, you do have a bit of liquidity to the top side of us, sitting at that $100,000 mark. And again, that hot spot for the bottom is starting at 95, 194, kind of ranges a bit all the way down to about 93, 950. You zoom that on out a little bit more, take a look at that 2-week. You can kind of see once we get to those higher term time frames, there isn't a bunch of liquidity stacking up in either direction. This is kind of what you want to see when you're at that point where you want to see the market kind of push to the upside on things. You don't want that liquidity piled up to the bottom side of us. You want things kind of open and clear so you can kind of move that back up towards the top side because there's nothing to grab on the bottom side. You do have that monthly still with that liquidity sitting at that CME gap, but is quite a large move down, and I don't think we'll end up grabbing that. All right, let's say good morning to the chat. We've got Jeffrey Stonesire in here saying good morning, everyone, and dropping some otters in the chat. We've got Jesse Gluck in here. Good morning, Jesse Gluck. Hope you're having a great afternoon, if I'm not mistaken, and you've got a bunch of caffeine in you because we might be in for a wild ride on some of these charts today. Got Dante Cabrera in here. Good morning, Darren does things as well. Good morning to you. We got Arsan246 in here saying good morning. We've got All Set in here as well saying a good morning to everyone in the chat. Jesse Gulak saying all set for gains. We've got Arsan. We've got Jesse saying good morning to Arsan with the coffee cup, and Jesse saying, I love spare ribs. We will note that and not dive too far into some rib chats because it'll take up way too much time. All right, I've got the daily chart pulled up for us. That is where I had drawn our resistance lines from yesterday. They were dotted yesterday, and we have now confirmed the first one that was off of the wicks. We did get a nice little wick to this support line, a little break above that 382 before we quickly pulled back down. I did have a line that I was looking at for some bouncing points, and that's right here where we had seen a bit of a pause on the way up on a shorter term time frame. I believe that was about the 1 or 4 hour there. So we will zoom that on in a second, and you will kind of see how much play that line got before we really dropped below it. I was looking for a potential hold of support there, but looks like we're going to break a bit lower. You do have the MACD, which is now crossed to the top side of our zero line on the daily. Looking for a bit of a cool off though, as it's getting a bit more of a curvature sideways on things. So definitely looking to close that gap on our indicator line, as that indicator line is going to break above zero and kind of cool things off just a bit. You do have your volume, which has started to pick back up on some sell off as your money flow is ticking to that red as well. Let's zoom that on in to the 4 hour so you can kind of see where I'd pulled that line from. We've got equal candle bodies here that we really paused at before we got that big move to the upside to create that resistance line that I had drawn out. And as you can kind of see here, we've got a nice little break below that after we were unable to maintain that 382. You do have the volume rolling over from the positive as we were getting this break back down. You've got your prime oscillator with a reversal signal shown, and it looks like we're heading back down just a little bit. You do have this 50% line on our Fibonacci extension, which could be a nice little area of support if we come down even further. That's going to be that 97,686, which would kind of look like a switch of some trends here where we're making some higher lows on things. You do have the golden pocket below us as well, which would be another area where we could make some a break of trend, where if we get that bounce on the golden pocket, it is making a macro higher low and kind of sets us up for that break towards the top side of this support of this resistance line and sends us back up to the top for a break of trend. So that golden pocket going to be sitting at that 95,200 point. All right, let's zoom that on in to the hourly here. Kind of take a look at some of the play that trend line had gotten for us that I had drawn from that 4 hour. As we've been breaking down, you can kind of see we're pulling back up to that quite nicely, getting a little bit of some play on that right now. We're really looking to make a lower high here though. So as we're bouncing back up against it, might be that point where we really break it down to. Let's see, Biz Knowledge in the chat, lol, is I'd say be ready for us to launch to 107K soon. And that's kind of where I'm looking for that next to break up if we do end up getting that nice little bounce off of our 50% line or back here off of that golden pocket. That would be that initial point of a break of trend where I would look for a new higher high on things, and that's where we do have that 103,000, which is going to be the real battle point on that way up to the top side. Really going to need to turn some of these levels into some support here before we really make that move to 107. Really going to need to see some decent money flow coming in as well. Let's zoom that on in to the 15-minute to kind of see what the morning's looking like. You are getting that pushback up to the upside on that line I've had drawn out, sitting at 99,307, looking to make a higher high here, and that's going to be this battle point that we kind of want to see. We do have your prime oscillator, which is ticking to the green and looking to the upside, but your money flow is quite red, and that volume is ticking back up on some sell-off pressure too. Really kind of dragging the market down, especially since some of the data was not as overwhelmingly positive as everyone would like to think. Seeing a bit of some sell-off here after we failed to turn this into a support line, and looking to see what those lower prices might be. You did have a bunch of liquidity sitting right below us as well, and that was at about the midline of this big candle here, sitting right above that 50% line on our Fibonacci extension. Rejection of the 786 and back to 97K. That's kind of something that I had in mind there. That's that this is going to be our 382, which we might try to break towards for a brief second this morning if we are able to turn this line into some support, and probably end up breaking back down with how the higher term time frame is looking right now. That's 97,705 there. That's going to be that 50% line armor Fibonacci extension that I really want to see us turn into some support. If we were unable to maintain that, the golden pocket really looks like that next bouncing point we'd see, unless we see some stalling out here at about 96,500, where we've got some decent bounces off of back here, and then again we saw rejections off of back here on our way down to the golden pocket before we lost things. Got username in the chat. Good morning, username. Hope you're having a great morning so far. If anyone has any alt requests, go ahead and drop those in the chat for me. I did have algo that I wanted to take a look at from yesterday's requests. I did have arrow as well that I was probably going to take a look at. Other than that, I don't have anything that I'd really had on my list for the morning. I did want to take a brief look at gold and the Dixie. Of course, AIXBT, it has been ripping. We did take a look at that yesterday. I have not looked at it this morning, so would definitely be an interesting project to look at to kind of see how the TA played out from yesterday. Let's dive into these news articles real quick. But before I do that, let's take a quick drink for things. Need my caffeine for the morning. And everyone seems to want a rib chat. Oh my goodness. Y'all and your meats. All right, Injective and Near. Some of my favorites. All right, got those added to the list. We've got US CPI. Inflation for December rises to 2.9, meeting estimates. What it means for the Fed. Consumer prices rose to Wall Street's expectations and complicated the Federal Reserve's rate-cutting actions. Inflation lands right. U.S. inflation for December rose 2.9% on an annualized basis, according to the Consumer Price Index. Data released Wednesday morning, the monthly growth clip came in at 0.4%. Slightly topping estimates of 0.3%, core CPI rose 3.2% year over year and 0.2% month on month. It was a mixed bag report. On the other hand, the readout wasn't a big surprise to traders. But on the other hand, December's marks yet another month of growing price pressures after November's inflation landed at 2.7%. What to make of the data? Now markets are about to calibrate their expectations on the interest rate front. More precisely, what does this report mean for the Federal Reserve, and will officials still be in favor of a highly anticipated interest rate cuts? Previously, Fed Chair Jerome Powell had signaled 2 cuts in 2025, but the U.S. central bank is data dependent, meaning it may or may not stick to its guidance. If policymakers decide that this was it, they may push back on expectations of further cuts to borrowing costs. Apparently, the inflation trajectory is bumpy, but how is this affecting markets left and right? The US dollar initially sold off as Forex traders digested the news. The Euro US dollar advanced to levels of $1.03, but then pared back some of the gains to 1033, floating fairly flat on the day. Gold rose to levels above 2,690 per ounce, ticking higher on the day. Stock futures were showing highly upbeat figures. Futures contracts tied to the S&P 500 were higher by 1.1%. Futures on the NASDAQ were doing even better, up 1.3%, and Dow futures were up 1% ahead of that opening bell. And this is kind of a data drop that worried me just a bit. You know, we are seeing inflation being very sticky. As we've been cutting rates, it was a worrisome thing to me. I did talk about the potential of inflation ticking back up when they did that first initial rate cut of 50 basis points. And that's kind of the direction that we've been heading here on things. We've been seeing inflation start ticking back up. And it's not just here, it is around the whole world. And this is kind of where that Fed's in a very tricky position. They are at a point where they said they were going to do four rate cuts this back in the beginning of their rate cutting cycle back last year. And now that they've been seeing how sticky things have been on inflation, they lowered that to two basis cuts that they might be doing this year. And it's looking like we might not even get a cut at all this year. My big worry is that tick back up above 3%, which would kind of force things in a direction where you could see some rate hikes. Just like Japan had been doing, they saw that inflation kind of tick back up, and they are in a rate hiking cycle instead of a rate cutting cycle. They did cut rates kind of early to kind of boost their economy on things, and it kind of backfired on them, and we are playing out some of the same things right now. I did have another article on things. This is a quick one as well. The inflation data don't move the needle for a Fed on hold. Wednesday's inflation report doesn't do much to change the outlook for the Federal Reserve that was already taking a break from cutting interest rates. Higher food and gas prices in December drove the largest month-over-month increase in consumer price index in nearly a year. But core prices, which exclude volatile food and energy items, posted the mildest increase in 6 months. Sturdy employment data plus mixed signs of a progress on inflation have prompted Fed officials to signal they're ready to stay on the sidelines until they see more evidence the current settings for rates is keeping a lid on inflation. So far this year, investors have puzzled this year over a range of possible outcomes for the Fed. Whether the central bank might cut rates later this spring, whether the central bank will reduce rates at all this year, and whether the next move, whenever it comes, might be a rate increase. The largest numbers don't move the needle on that front. They neither suggest that inflation is re-accelerating and derailing the case for lower rates down the road, nor that the price pressures are cooling briskly. For a Fed on pause, it will take a few more months of data to shape any of the next steps. And this is kind of what we need to do for quite a while. Do a little bit of a pause, kind of see where our rate cuts that we've already done, because we've cut a full percentage from that initial rate cutting cycle to now, and see how that really affects the market. I think they went very quickly on things, and that was a little bit worrisome. That's why we've seen that inflation pressure be so sticky, and it's why you've seen a lot of uncertainty in the market. And if you've been paying attention to what gets bought up, you have been seeing those precious metals and other inflation resistant assets kind of get a little bit of a boost. You did see some of those core things like the S&P 500, your NASDAQ, your big seven really hitting that sell-off. Oil got a nice little buy up and has been seeing some small sell-offs on some of the oil data that we get weekly. You do have some of that health data, those health stocks that have been doing quite nicely as well as the energy sector. So these are all more inflation resistant assets that people have been buying up, and kind of leads to more worrisome on some of that inflation. You do see that 10-year being bought up, 10-year bond being bought up as well, which kind of sends things in the wrong direction on some of that inflation, as Piper has talked about a lot on his show. We've got Moho in here. Good morning, good morning. Good morning to French Toaster. And I saw Mark Dutch in here as well. He said, I'm getting tired of your AI XBT nonsense, and I'm not the only one. Well, it's been pumping. So, it's if they're making money off of it, they're going to talk about it. And it has been doing quite nicely when the rest of the market was doing some sell-off. So I have been taking a look at it, and it's been doing pretty decent. It's been holding trend very nicely. Rates will get cut. Well, Trump even said he's cutting regardless when he gets back into office. Well, here's the thing, biz knowledge. Trump isn't in charge of the interest rates. And though he might say one thing or another, he doesn't have that final say on things. And it does come down to the Federal Reserve, and he's not in charge of the Federal Reserve, nor can he remove the chair of the Federal Reserve, as it is unconstitutional to do so. So it doesn't matter what the heck Trump wants on the rates, because he doesn't get that. He's not in charge of it. And seeing a president in charge of rates would be very worrisome. He is a businessman, but just because you're a businessman doesn't mean you're an economist. And Jerome Powell has been doing an all right job on things. It's been heading in the same direction as the rest of the world, and as you see the rest of the world's inflation ticking up, they kind of move some of the inflation pressure back to the U.S. as they use the dollar as that base currency for the world. We've got French Toaster in here. Good morning, good morning. Moho, good morning to you as well. Username with the typical Boston sucks to French Toaster. Let's see. We've got Randy a Bite in here. Good morning, good morning. We've got Baba Yaz in here. Good morning, dragging today. Time to get into AI XBT. Well, we will take a quick look at that and see what the market says on that and kind of what the chart's reading. The Fed have been behind the curve, lol. Good job, my ASS. Well, here's the thing. They've been behind the curve, but the rest of the world was ahead of the curve. You've got the UK, which started cutting rates 6 months before we did, and where's their inflation? Also ticking up. You've got Canada, started cutting rates 4 months before we did. Their inflation rate also ticking up. You've got the UK that was in that same position where they started cutting 4 months ahead of us. Inflation pressure ticking back up. You've got Germany getting smacked around by inflation. This is not just a US problem. This is a global problem right here. I kind of feel like you don't like Trump. Let's see if you can kind of This is oh, it doesn't. That's what my energy drink is sitting on there, sir. I try to keep the politics out of it. I wore a MAGA hat on election day for the show. So it's not what I think about the politician. It is what the current rate of the economy is. And guess what? Just because you want Trump to have power doesn't mean he has the power. So better be thankful Trump won, or else we wouldn't be at 100K Bitcoin right now. And I mean that is true, but that has nothing to do about the long term on things. We did kind of overheat. We were going to hit 100K either way. So whoever's president doesn't really affect it on the long term of things. All right, we got Mark Dutch saying nothing to see on that AIX BT, no history, price discovery, just focus on opportunity, not noob requests. Jesse spams every live stream from the beginning to the end. Well, he's here every day, and he has some quite crazy gains that he be making on some of these more degen plays. So I like to take a look at it, and sometimes I hop into a trade with him. I see not a baseball fan, huh? It says Arsan246. All right. We've got gold making a nice little rejection off of our platinum pocket on a fib extension. That was at 2,711, which we have now rejected off of and are looking to come back a little bit lower. Bitcoin was not going to 100 low. If Kamala had won, we'd be sitting at negative 70% alts and 40K Bitcoin. Well, that's your opinion on things, and you're allowed to have your opinion. All right, there. Whoever the politician is has some impact on the price of things, but when things are in this bullish trend on Bitcoin, you might see the slowdown on things as well. So we were always going to hit that 100K mark this year, this cycle. And I don't think whoever's president has much to do with it besides the time frame on things. Did I miss something, or did Trump actually do something for crypto? At this point, he's just made promises like any other politician. Thank you. There we go. And that's the big point on thing. Any politician can talk out of both sides of their mouth. And so this is why a lot of the time these politicians might give a brief boost to things, but it doesn't matter too much on the long term. The asset is the asset, and whether the asset does good or bad has everything to do on the asset. We see Jay Violet in the chat. Good morning, Jay Violet. Ribs username from Jay Violet. All right. As you can kind of see here, gold is on a little bit of a pullback here. You've got the MACD looking across that indicator line and break to the bottom side. You're getting some reversal signals, but the volume is in the green right now. We've got the buying pressure ticking back up on gold as well here on this 1 hour, but we are looking at a little bit of a pullback as things are overheated. The 15 minutes kind of boding for another little bounce here at that 2000 and right below 700. So 2697 would be that next little bouncing point I would look for on some gold before we try to make that pushback up to our platinum pocket here. I was taking a look at the Dixie. You've got that breakdown below this line that I wanted to see held. We did get a nice little push off of our platinum pocket here. Oh no, the 236 here before we got that push back up to our 109 and 35 cent point. Really looking to turn that into some support here before we try to break back towards this fair value gap that I've got drawn out. The bottom side, I believe we might see as a little bit of a resistance area. That's going to be that 109 and about 60 cent there. I see Wick 589. It is one thing I dislike more than politicians. It's incompetent politicians. The market will tank, and you'll only have one person with their empty hands and their empty head. See, and that's where politicians are not in anyone's favor. So, Wick 589, howdy y'all. Good morning to you, Wick 589. All right, as we're looking at the Dixie to kind of pump off of today's data, kind of head things in the right direction, as we might see that export be a little bit stronger than our imports. It does bring a little bit of strength back into the dollar. Looking at that 15-minute for the morning, you do see us right at that point where we're starting to see some topping signals, some overbought, really waiting for this to be turned into some support here and see a little bit of cool off. Chat going to get spicy. Let me grab my popcorn, says username. Of course, username. Of course. We will take a look at some of these art requests. We had AI, XBT. Let's get that pulled up there. XBT. And there we have it drawn out. I did say I wanted to see a nice little bounce off of the 382 from our Fibonacci extension I had drawn out the other day before we got that move to the upside, and that's pretty much exactly what happened there. We ended up getting some faltering here at that 2618 and looking to push a little bit lower on things for the morning. Let's move that on out to the 4 hour here and see where we're sitting. We've got money flow sitting nice and green. The volume is kind of rolling over a bit on some of that. And you've got your prime oscillator and your MACD looking to get that curve to the downside on things. Can maybe get that bounce off of that 1618 here. Let me kind of delete that one and get a new one drawn out here. We'll pull that to the 1 hour to get a better draw on things. You've got that move from the bottom here to the top. Oh, looking at a fib retracement to kind of see where we might land on things, since this is looking a little bit more down. Looking to kind of hold that golden pocket here where we've seen several rejections off of it back here. Going to be that 77-cent range. Let's see what a fib extension might show us on things. Let's get that fib extension drawn out from the low. Going to go over here to the high, to the low. Looking to pull back down to, yep, probably going to be around that 77-cent range. We have our platinum pocket sitting there on the fib extension as well. So looking for that bounce. Let's see. Bobby Yah saying, what's the indicator for all into the alt bull run and set up for the rest of retail joining? See, and I don't think we see a bunch of the retail pressures that we did from last time. You have seen a bunch of retail buying in the ETFs. So that has been the real retail this time around. So really waiting to see where that move into the alts comes in. Probably going to be when we see that real Bitcoin top on things. I don't think we see all of the alts pump. I've said that more than once here. I think we see more of the established alts or the projects that really have some real world assets drawn in on them to kind of get that pump to the upside. Wick 589. The real question is, does XLM follow XRP? Dutch, what do you think? I've talked about that a bit. You know, they are tied together quite nicely, and I do believe me and Lunar Beaches are going to do an XRP show. where we focus on XRP, some of the drawbacks, some of the benefits, some of the things that we like and dislike. I know Lunar Beaches really likes XRP, so definitely gonna be an interesting show there because I don't dislike XRP. I dislike their association with Ripple Labs. All right, let's take a look at Near and Injective. I'm probably gonna have to wind the show down a little bit early. I am getting smacked around by the coffee that I had this morning, so definitely gonna have to take care of that here in a little. We've got Near that was requested by username. Let's zoom that on out to the 4 hour. As you saw, we got that nice little bounce off of the line that I had drawn out, and really got that solid bounce back up above our 50% line on a fib retracement here. As you can kind of see here, we kind of pulled back down briefly into it, almost got that touch on the midline of my buying zone that I've seen below that $5, and really got that launch back to the top side. We are looking a little bit like we're trying to cool off here in this range. BC's gonna have to go for his coffee. Yeah, it's been smacking me around. I've been drinking way too much coffee again in the mornings, and it's kind of making me have to pay for it on the back end. Does AMP follow XLM? I don't watch AMP that much, so you guys will have to let me know on that one. So we've got Near looking to cool off a bit on this range, kind of hold above that 50% line on our Fibonacci extension. We've got a nice little point above us where we could see some holding of prices being that $5.15. We did get a nice little wick below that. Going to zoom that on in to the 1 hour here, kind of take a look at that. We've got your volume slowing down just a bit as we've seen our reversal signal, and that prime oscillator get that curvature back up, and a light red on that prime oscillator too. Looking for a cross of our indicator line on the top side of things, so really going to health. You need fat/protein with your coffee, otherwise it'll smack you around and eventually lead to insulin resistance. Well, guess what? I work out every single morning, so I have a bunch of protein right after my workout, and doesn't help me any. I eat my egg, and then I drink a protein shake, and then I have a protein bar sometimes in replacement of that protein shake. And it doesn't matter. Sometimes that coffee just a little too strong in the mornings. So 2 eggs, 2 glasses of milk. I had, yep. That's about where I sit. It also doesn't help that sometimes I like my protein shake with some actual milk, and me and milk don't get along. So, all right, there. We are looking to push a little bit higher on things, possibly see a rejection here in about that $5.40 range before we really break back down. We're making very equal highs here. So, definitely looking to take out some of this liquidity to the top side. You do have an order block sitting in this range back here. Let me get that drawn out for you. Make that green because it is an order block. Get that green. Get that green. There we go there. Kind of better little view there. You do have the midline being about $5.39. All right, let me take a brief look at Injective before I kind of wind things down. You have Injective breaking back up towards our golden pocket here. Got a nice little bounce off of the midline of our fair value gap that I've had drawn out for quite a while. This 1 hour is looking quite nice, the same as Near is. Looking for that break back to the top side on things. All right. Let's see what that 15-minute is looking like for the morning. You are getting a little bit of some topping signals here. Maybe get that little pushback up to $23.39, about 40 cents before we really see that break back down on things. You are seeing a bit of some topping signals here, but you still got a bit of room to run here before we really get that solid breakdown. You do have the 4-hour looking a little bit bearish on things. You're getting that rollover. Your volume is still quite green though, so really looking for that solid support line back down here at about $22, where we've seen a nice little bounce off of, maybe down to that $22.17 range. All right, I am gonna wind the show down. I've got to take care of this. All right, thank you to everyone that tuned in this morning. If you did not get to check out Crypto Billy's motivational video for the morning, I will drop that in the chat so you have something to watch before we get over to Alex O'Crypto's chat. Make sure to tune in to the other shows on Piper Academy. We got the morning market report at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. That's with Piper and OC. We've got Trade Academy with Trade Intuition at 4 p.m. Eastern time. The Crypto Nightcap at 8 p.m. Eastern time with TradeFly and FD White. And Markets After Dark with Lunar Beaches Crypto at 11 p.m. Thank you all to everyone that shows up every single day and has some fun in the chats. We do this all for you. Check out those links in the description if you like the show and you like the TA and you like the alpha that we drop every single day, because we've got a nice Discord where we got a lot of alpha that we drop daily, and we get to interact with you guys a little bit more. Other than that, everyone, wake up, because today's going to be a good day.